What does it mean to be free? This is the Lost Souls podcast. I'm Alex, and today I'm going to be trying to answer a question that probably doesn't have a good answer, but you've already heard it. It's what does it mean to be free? Because I don't think it's something a lot of people question. Here in America, it's said to be the land of the free. And I think just by living here, a lot of people assume that we must be free. They say it's true. We're told it from the time we're young. This must be the land of freedom. But what exactly are we free to do? When you go back to, say, the time of the American Revolution, it wasn't freedom to do anything, was it? If you think about it, we weren't trying to free ourselves to be free for freedom's sake. We weren't the land of the free. We were freeing ourselves from tyranny. So we're free to not be ruled by a king. Now that, when you really get down to think about it, don't we have a king? Isn't the president not the king of our land? I know there is distribution of power, so let's even scratch that. Let's say the president's not king. Let's say the government is king, right? So really, that's how it was in England too. It was their government. It was just their king was the head of state. But is it not true that no matter where you go, there is this ruling power above you, much like, I don't know, a monarchy? Now it's a different form, sure. In America we have, Congress, we have the three branches. We have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and then the legislative branch. They each serve their own roles, and they were created with the intent to create checks and balances among each other. And, but is that even freedom? They're just another form of order, and does it actually accomplish anything? Well, of course it accomplishes laws. It accomplishes a sense of order in the executive branch, and it establishes a means of review in the judicial branch, but that's really all it does. Now, the scope can extend over that, and then you have the layers of federalism, as you'd like to call it, with federal, state, and local governments each having their own hand in determining the policies and direction for the nation or the people within it. But even still, is that truly what it means to be free? What exactly is the nature of the human existence? What exactly is it that we spend our time doing? What do we have the freedom to do? Do we have the freedom to work? Well, if you ask, I suppose that's a hard question to answer, isn't it? Because then you'd have to define what work even is, and it's what you spend your time doing. Now, nobody's going to stop you from doing whatever you want with your time, so on some hand, is that freedom? But on the other hand, can you survive doing whatever you want? What I'm asking is there not some certain pre-established set of conditions and rules by which you must live your life in order to survive? I'm not asking rhetorically, I mean actually, because can I just, do anything? Is there anything I wish to do which will be supported and allowed to exist? Well, no, because not everything makes money, and money ends up being what you need to survive. And it gets even more complicated than that. So do we have the freedom to work? Well, today as we stand, we're definitely more free than, say, African American slaves were back before the Civil War or at any point in history. And I'm talking about America specifically because they didn't have the freedom to work. They just worked. They were forced to, right? And so today we do enjoy some degree of freedom more than they did, right? Because we get to choose to some degree where we work. But do do the conditions of what our work is actually change? Because what are you doing? So people work a full-time job. Not everybody works a full-time job, but let's make this a little more simple. So you have the freedom to go and spend 40 hours a week doing something that somebody else wants you to do. And while in this context, you have the freedom to listen to whatever your boss says and tells you to do so that you can continue to make the money you need to survive. So what happens when your ideas and what you believe butts heads with what your boss believes? Well, that's when people end employment, right? But what happens when that's a reoccurring theme? What happens when how you want to live your life is constantly butting heads with how an established work structure or a boss wants you to live your life? Is that true freedom? Do we even have the freedom to live if so much of our life must go toward somebody else's dreams and accomplishments? And I'm not even saying their dreams and accomplishments. That'd be like putting something up on a pedestal. It's not like every boss dreams to be a manager at a McDonald's or anything like that. But do we even have the freedom to live? Because we're going to die if we don't, aren't we? Isn't that the whole point? And even if you don't work and you don't have money, then you have the freedom to live your life. Do you have the freedom to explore? Do you have the freedom to see the world? No, because all that ends up costing money, doesn't it? A great example of this is probably going to be the whole idea of a vacation. Now, your boss isn't going to stop you from going off and doing something, but there can be repercussions for doing so. Say that you're an employee somewhere and you get the opportunity to, I don't know, go to the beach, have some fun. Well, what if you request this time off properly and your boss is like, no, we can't have you doing that, right? But what happens in that situation? Either you don't go on your vacation and you stay and you keep your job, or you go on that vacation and lose it. Well, now you no longer have the freedom to earn money, that's what it seems to be, a freedom to work. You must then find another job with another boss who's going to have the same attitude your last one had. So is it just about recycling through all the different means of employment as a worker to live free? Is that really freedom? What else do we have in terms of freedom? Do we have the freedom to love? Well, I suppose we do. There's nothing that can stop you from loving, but what even is love? I guess I'm talking, it can be familial or, relational to somebody who's non-familial, which I guess are two types of relationships you might have. But do you have the freedom to love whoever you want? Not by the definitions by which exist today, because is there such a thing as a one-sided relationship? Is there anybody in this world who would call that love? No, because love has to be reciprocated. Well, in that case, I'm not really free to love. I'm only free to love within certain confines and boundaries which exist within society already that are determined to be acceptable and good to work toward or good to work within. And if you step outside of those bounds, you no longer have that freedom. It's stripped from you. What other freedoms? Do we have the freedom to pursue our dreams? Well, I would argue that to the vast majority of people who have had their dreams ground up and crushed right in front of them, do they really have the freedom to pursue their dreams? No, they've been crushed down and sold a lie that, hey, you can chase whatever you want and you can pursue it and you can do it. When that just doesn't end up being the reality, because the world isn't so kind as to allow people to pursue what they want. Let's go to the Bill of Rights, which are said to be the true freedoms or some such stuff. I don't know. That's the way I view them. How about the freedom to protest? Do we have the freedom to protest? Well, sure, you can go and protest and nobody's going to be able to stop you. Mostly. They mostly have to let you sit there and do your thing, but, let's go back to, say, the Civil Rights era. Did the civil rights protesters have a right to protest? Well, legislatively, yeah, but that didn't stop them from being hosed down. That didn't stop them from being beaten by the police. I didn't stop them from being silenced or told to sit down, did it? So if you're just going to be stopped by the powers that exist, is that really freedom at all? How about the very freedom to have opinions? That might be the only one people can't take from you, but because you can have whatever opinion you want. So I guess that is a true freedom. Nobody can police what goes on in your head, though they can sure try and tell you that, oh, your way of thinking is wrong and your perspective here just is flawed. This happens a lot when you're in the workplace. So you ever been somewhere working, and how about all those situations in which your boss just kind of decides you got to stay longer because they need you to stay a little longer? And you try to be, and well, in that situation, if you want to work, you can't go against your boss, can you? So you got to do what they say. Well, number one, that's not freedom. But what happens? What are you told when you're visibly or actually upset over it? What are you told when you're upset over this situation? Well, at least you're making money, right? So what's happening is they're changing that narrative to fit something. Well, at least there's a positive here, and this is the way you should think about it. This is the way you should think about it. So here, your very opinions are just being blown out of, or not blown out of proportion. They're being completely knocked down, replaced with another you're supposed to adopt. Is that freedom? Do you have the freedom to voice his opinions? I mean, sure, you can go say something about it, but does that mean anything will actually change? Do you have the freedom to make your opinions into some sort of reality? Well, what happens when you challenge that? What happens when you challenge the previous example? You say, no, I'm not going to, I'm going to leave, right? Does that end well? Does it ever end well for anybody? No, but we still call that free, because while you have the freedom to do that, your boss is determined to have the freedom to do whatever the hell they want with you because they're your boss, right? Because we've only passively accepted this, what I would call asinine power structure, in which there is a sense of hierarchical authority, and this isn't news to everybody, but this is something most people kind of just understand. And you're meant to sit here and just agree with it because it's the way you're supposed to live, right? You have these people above you and you listen to the people above you, and if you don't agree with them, well, you're just wrong, right? And it's not by actually taking and examining the arguments themselves, just because the person who was above you said you were wrong. I believe this is how the military works, whereas there's this very strict, what's it called? A pecking order of sorts, a ladder, a ladder of authority, if you will. That seems to be the best way I have to describe it right now. Is that truly free, though? At all? In the slightest? To not have your opinions not only voiced, but respected as well. Because there is no freedom to be respected. People can choose to respect you or not. But yet, you're expected to respect up, right? There is no expectation to respect down, but yet there is the expectation and almost baked in assumption and necessary compliance that you must respect up, even when those powers which stand above you seem to want nothing more than to shut you up and shut you down, right? I want you to just fall in line. Is that truly freedom? Well, let's talk about the Second Amendment too in America, the right to bear arms, because what's that really getting at? It's not, I have the right to own a gun. It's that you have a right to defend yourself from threats, right? Well, is that even the case? Because let's go into, I guess, there are some states where this is true in America. I guess this is up for some amount of contention because there's like the stand your ground laws, right? Where somebody pulls a gun on you, you have the right to shoot them dead or whatever, right? But what happens when somebody breaks into your home? Well, they got to cross like 3 barriers in some state, 3 thresholds before you're allowed to even touch them. Is that a right to defend yourself? What about in public? Say somebody starts wailing on you, right? Say somebody comes up to you, knocks you the hell out, right? Or tries to, punches you square in the face. Do you then have the freedom to fight back, to defend yourself? Or, if the cops get involved, will you both be charged with assault? This can be seen in schools a lot, as there tends to be a strict no fighting policy, right? So when there is this whole idea, and I'm not advocating for violence. I don't think people should go out and just uproar and start doing blah blah blah, right? But at the same time, say you're in school, somebody comes up and hits you, you do not have the freedom to fight back with that person. You are supposed to take it and let the authorities handle the matter. And only if you choose the absolute pacifist route, where you choose to cause no others physical harm, because other types of harm are actually completely on the table. There is no law against hurting somebody's emotions. There is no law against causing somebody emotional pain. And there is no recourse to be done when that happens. Right? There is no, only when physical harm is present is there an issue, but you can ridicule somebody all you want, you can bully somebody all you want, and you can just straight up deny, reject, and exclude people all you want. And I suppose that's where you get a freedom from, right? You get the freedom to exclude and pariah anybody you wish. Right? But without any repercussions from having to face that kind of treatment toward others. And this is called just. What I think society really means when it says freedom is you don't have the freedom to do what you want, but they're giving you the opportunity to choose to obey instead of being forced to with gun or whip or beating or whatever. And even then, it's only like a farcical choice because you don't really get the option, do you? You can choose to obey, but what happens when you don't? Well, you're just an outcast. Somebody who, quite literally, isn't allowed to be involved in society because you're no longer deemed safe for somebody who can be around, right? Do you even have the freedom to choose? Do you even have the freedom to choose at all? Because like, say I'm right here. I am here right now. Do I have the freedom to just go be a doctor? Not really, because not only do I have to have the grades and ability and talent deemed necessary to pursue such a career, I have to have the money to back up my pursuit of it, don't I? Because that's how the education system works, at least in America. You don't just choose to go do whatever you want. And even still, you can fall out along the way. You can be rejected or turned down at plenty of situations while you're on your way there. And now here's one that's going to maybe ruffle some feathers, but do you have the freedom to say die? I mean, really. Because unaliving yourself does tend to be something that states have laws against. Right? It's illegal to do so. Not that there will be any repercussions, because, what are you going to do now? But it's not seen as a freedom you have. When you look around and see that life is shit and society is fucked and you don't have a place in it, you don't have the freedom to just peace out, at least not according to the government and the powers that be. So what kind of freedom do you even actually have? Is anybody actually free? Because no matter where you go or where you're at, you're still stricken and bound by the rules and social parameters and bounds which hold people in. Do you think you get to go to anywhere in the world and just be free? Even in America, you got to follow, or you're supposed to follow, a set of rules and procedures for how you engage. Right? You can't just do whatever comes to your mind, because that might be affecting somebody else and their sense of a status quo and structure, right? So even when your structure and your status quo is something which is completely out of proportion, whenever it's stricken and robbed from you, you still don't have the freedom to struggle against that, do you? You're told to accept it and move on. Told to just passively lay there and not choose to fight back, right? Just get on with it. It's the way things are. Is that even freedom? Do we even know what it means to be free? Because to me, what it means to be free is to live such a whimsical life that there are no strife. And I guess you can't live a life without strife. It's part of what it means to be human. But you don't even get to choose what strife is. Like in-baked strife that most of the population will face, and then some of the fortunate born into a family of riches or whatever won't face. Because the poor face starvation while they're rich don't. Right? How many rich kids do you hear about going hungry? Unless it's by choice. But how many rich kids do you hear going hungry? You don't. Because they are a degree of freedom higher than what the rest of people even seem to contemplate or realize. See, when you really get down to it, people end up just being slaves to circumstance. And the freedom to break free of that is only attained through breaking through and settling down and obeying through the circumstance in the dream, in the hope that someday you escape it, only to realize that there is no escape, right? You keep going. How many people live their lives and realize halfway through that they're unfulfilled, right? Well, why are they unfulfilled? It's because they're not actually living the life they want to live, right? What is freedom if not living the life you wish to live? But you can't live the life you wish to live, because the life that you wish to live tends to depend on the actions of others, does it not? Which is why the whole idea of freedom might be farcical. But what else do we have to live for? That's the dream, right? The American dream, to live free. What a load of hogwash. But I'm done being depressing for today, at least in this episode. You listen. Thanks for giving this old. I'm not even old. I'm young. This fool some time, some ear space. I've just rambled and probably left more questions unanswered than satisfied any of them, right? But hey, at least I'm doing what I want, right? I'm saying some of the things I want to say. And in my mind, that is what it means to be free. Peace.